She's already conquered an Olympic champion. She's dismantled a defending Grand Slam winner. And now, Steffi Graf has delivered a chilling verdict on Alex Eala. She's unstoppable. The 22-time Grand Slam champion has just joined the growing chorus of legends who believe the Filipina sensation is destined for greatness. From Martina Navratilova's recognition of her record-breaking start against top 10 opponents to Billie Jean King's emotional embrace at Wimbledon, the sport's greatest icons are all saying the same thing. And now, the woman who won 22 major titles has broken her silence. What did the greatest German champion in history say about Alex Eala? The American was walking into a hostile crowd. The stadium would be packed with Filipino fans waving flags and chanting Eala's name. And she knew exactly what she was getting into. But instead of fearing the atmosphere, Caty McNally embraced it. And her words before the match left everyone stunned. What she's doing for tennis is unreal. McNally said in an interview before her third-round clash with Alex Eala at the Canadian Open. She fills stadiums. For me, whatever happens, it will be a learning experience. I will surely learn something, and obviously she's playing some great tennis right now. The American world? No. 70 had already proven she could handle the biggest stages. As a 17-year-old at the 2019 U.S. Open, she had pushed Serena Williams to the brink on Arthur Ashe Stadium, taking the first set off the 23-time Grand Slam champion before falling 5-7, 6-3, 6-1. That experience taught her something she would carry into Toronto. The crowd doesn't have to be on your side for you to compete. I'm hoping my experience in those types of matches will help me, McNally said. It will be a good test for my routines and all the mental work I've done to stay focused and block everything else out. But McNally wasn't just preparing to survive. She was planning to compete. She knew that Eala's recent run had been extraordinary. 7 consecutive wins across 2 tournaments, including her first WTA title in Washington. The Filipina had just dismantled Alicia Parks in the second round, extending her winning streak to 6 matches. But McNally had just done something even more impressive. She had stunned reigning Wimbledon champion Linda Noskova in straight sets, coming back from 1-5 down to win 7-6, 5, 6-1. I don't know if I want to reveal my game plan, McNally said when asked how she planned to trouble Eala. I think my game brings a lot of variety. If I can impose it tomorrow, that's what I want to do. I want to play my tennis and dictate the rallies as I want. The atmosphere, she knew, would be unlike anything most players face. The Filipino community in Toronto had already packed Sobeys Stadium for Eala's previous matches. Philippine flags hung from railings like a World Cup match. The chants of "Let's go, Alex!" had echoed across the stadium so loudly that the chair umpire repeatedly begged for silence. McNally had heard the stories, she had watched the videos, and she was ready. A part of me also wants to accept what happens around me, enjoy it and savor the moment, she said. It's a beautiful experience. The respect was mutual. Eala, for her part, knew exactly what she was facing. McNally had just beaten a Grand Slam champion. She had experience on the biggest stages. She had a game built on variety and disruption. The kind of game that could unsettle even the most consistent players. What would you do if you were walking into a stadium where the entire crowd was against you? For Caty McNally, the answer was clear. She would embrace the experience. She would compete. And she would prove that the lessons she learned facing Serena Williams as a teenager had prepared her for moments exactly like this. For me, whatever happens, it's a learning experience, she had said. I will surely learn something. The atmosphere inside Sobeys Stadium was electric. Thousands of Filipino fans packed center court, waving Philippine flags and chanting Eala's name. And from the very first point, it was clear that this match would be anything but ordinary. I think I survived that one. It was so tough. Alex Eala's words after the match captured the essence of a battle that pushed her to her absolute limits. The 21-year-old Filipina had just outlasted Caty McNally 6-3, 5-7, 6-4 in a 2-hour and 39-minute thriller that had everything: a slow start, a momentum shift, an injury scare, and a dramatic finish. The victory marked her 7th consecutive win, extending a streak that had begun with her historic DC Open title run just days earlier. The match began with McNally seizing control. The American, who had just stunned reigning Wimbledon champion Linda Noskova in the previous round, came out firing. She broke Eala's serve early and raced to a 3-1 lead. The packed stadium, which had been roaring for Eala, fell silent for a moment. The world no. 70 was dictating play, using her variety and willingness to attack the net to unsettle the Filipina's baseline rhythm. But Eala, the champion who had already conquered Olympic gold medalists and Grand Slam winners, refused to fold. She held serve in the 5th game and immediately applied pressure on McNally's serve. The comeback was swift and relentless. Eala won 5 straight games to steal the first set 6-3, capping the run with back-to-back service winners. She had taken control. The momentum was hers. Then came the moment that changed everything. Midway through the 2nd set, after hitting a forehand, Eala landed awkwardly and rolled her left ankle. She called for a medical timeout and had her foot taped up. The injury visibly affected her movement, and McNally seized the opportunity, breaking Eala's serve to love in the 6th game and racing to a 4-3 lead. Eala fought back, as she always does. Despite the injury, she broke McNally in the 9th game to move within 1 game of the match at 5-4. The finish line was in sight, but McNally refused to go away. The American won 3 consecutive games, including 2 breaks, to take the 2nd set 7-5 and force a decider. The crowd was stunned. Eala's winning streak was hanging by a thread. But the 3rd set belonged to the Filipina. Eala, who had the tape removed from her ankle, moved more freely and raced to a 2-0 lead. She extended her advantage to 4-2 before closing out the match 6-4 in a hard-fought decider. After 2 hours and 39 minutes of grueling tennis, Eala had survived her toughest test yet. "It's one of those matches that really could have gone either way," Eala said afterward. "I think it was really down to details and a little bit of luck. Give her her flowers, guys." The victory marked Eala's 3rd consecutive win over an American opponent, following her triumphs over Alicia Parks in Toronto and Jessica Pegula in the DC Open final. More importantly, it proved that even on a night when she wasn't at her best, she could still find a way to win. What would you do if you were down 3-1 in the 1st set and rolling your ankle in the 2nd? For Alex Eala, the answer was simple. She would stay calm, trust her training, and find a way. Because that's what champions do. The atmosphere at SoBi Stadium was deafening. Thousands of Filipino fans packed center court, waving Philippine flags and chanting Eala's name. But for Caty McNally, this wasn't her first time facing a hostile crowd, and she had Serena Williams to thank for that. As a 17-year-old at the 2019 U.S. Open, McNally walked onto Arthur Ashe Stadium for a 2nd-round match against the 23-time Grand Slam champion. It was her first ever appearance on the sport's biggest stage, and the crowd was overwhelmingly in Williams's favor. I walked out there and I had the chills. That was the most insane atmosphere. I've never played on a court nowhere near that big, especially a night match, McNally recalled. What happened next shocked the tennis world. McNally didn't just compete, she pushed the legend to her limits. She stunned Williams by winning the 1st set 7-5, forcing the 6-time U.S. Open champion to elevate her game to avoid an early exit. "That was unbelievable," McNally said. "I came out really strong. I felt really good out there actually on the big stage." The experience taught McNally something invaluable. She had faced the greatest of all time on tennis's biggest stage, and she had survived. "It just shows I'm capable of playing with the best. I got a set off Serena Williams. Had her close in the 2nd set, too. Had some chances," she said. "For me, it just gives me a lot of confidence. Shows me that I can compete out on the biggest stages." Now, 7 years later, she was facing a different kind of challenge. The 10,000-plus fans packing SoBi Stadium weren't just cheering for a favorite. They were creating an atmosphere unlike anything McNally had experienced since that night at Arthur Ashe. But she had learned from that experience. She knew that the crowd could be an ally rather than an obstacle if she approached it the right way. "A part of me also wants to accept what happens around me, enjoy it and savor the moment," she said before the match. "It's a beautiful experience. What would you do if you had already faced the greatest of all time on the biggest stage? For Caty McNally, the answer was clear. She would draw on that experience. She would remember that she had survived Arthur Ashe, and she would embrace the challenge of facing a crowd that had turned Toronto into a homecoming for her opponent. Because she knew that if she could handle Serena Williams at the US Open, she could handle anything. The final point had been played. The crowd erupted. But at the net, something remarkable happened. The player who had just been defeated under the brightest lights of Toronto embraced the victor without a hint of bitterness. Caty McNally had just pushed Alex Eala to the absolute limit in a 2-hour and 39-minute thriller that had everything: comebacks, an injury scare, and enough drama to fill a season. The American world number 70 had come back from a set down, seized control when Eala rolled her ankle, and forced a decider after winning 3 straight games to take the second set 7-5. But instead of making excuses, McNally did something that left the tennis world speechless. She embraced the Filipino community that had packed Sobe Stadium. She acknowledged the atmosphere that had been overwhelmingly against her. And she paid tribute to the young woman who had just beaten her. "I'd like to thank Caty for a great match, for being such a great sport," Eala said after the victory, her voice still carrying the emotion of the battle. "It's one of those matches that really could have gone either way. I think it was really down to details and a little bit of luck." The words revealed the depth of respect between the two competitors. McNally, who had faced the greatest of all time on the sport's biggest stage as a teenager, had brought her best against Eala. She had pushed her to the brink, forced her to dig deeper than she had in weeks, and reminded everyone in the stadium why she had just stunned reigning Wimbledon champion Linda Noskova in the previous round. But Eala's victory was a testament to everything she had become. The 21-year-old Filipina had notched her 7th consecutive win, extending a streak that had begun with her historic DC Open title run just days earlier. She had survived an ankle scare that could have derailed her campaign. She had fought through a stadium full of Filipino fans who refused to let her quit, and she had emerged on the other side. "These 2 weeks have been incredible for me," Eala said, her voice thick with emotion. "So many extreme emotions. I'm really doing my best to power through and be professional and do what I know to do. To play in front of you guys, it's amazing." What would you do if you had just given everything you had and still come up short? For Caty McNally, the answer was clear. She would congratulate the woman who had beaten her. She would learn from the experience. And she would walk off the court with her head held high, because she knew that sometimes losing is just as valuable as winning. The 2-hour and 39-minute battle had ended in defeat. The crowd had erupted for the hometown hero. But as Caty McNally walked off center court, she carried something far more valuable than a victory. She carried a lesson that would last a lifetime. The American world know. 70 had pushed Alex Eala to the absolute limit in a match that had everything: comebacks, an injury scare, and enough drama to fill a season. She had seized control when Eala rolled her ankle in the second set, forcing a decider after winning 3 straight games. But instead of making excuses, McNally did something that left the tennis world speechless. She paid tribute to the woman who had just beaten her. "What she's doing for tennis is unreal," McNally had said before the match, her words echoing even louder in defeat. "She fills stadiums. For me, whatever happens, it will be a learning experience. I will surely learn something." And learn she did. The experience of facing a packed stadium full of Filipino fans, with Philippine flags draped everywhere and chants of "Eala, Eala," echoing across Sobe Stadium, was unlike anything McNally had faced since her 2019 US Open clash with Serena Williams. That night at Arthur Ashe had taught her that she could compete with the best. But Toronto taught her something different. It taught her that sometimes the lesson is just as valuable as the win. McNally had arrived in Toronto with a stunning upset over reigning Wimbledon champion Linda Noskova under her belt. She had proven she could beat anyone on any given day. But against Eala, she faced a different kind of challenge, a player who was not just talented, but relentless. A player who refused to quit even when her ankle was taped and her movement was compromised. A player who had won 7 consecutive matches and was showing no signs of stopping. "I think I survived that one," Eala said after the match, her voice carrying the weight of the battle. "It's one of those matches that really could have gone either way. I think it was really down to details and a little bit of luck. Give her her flowers, guys." McNally's pre-match words had proven prophetic. A part of her wanted to accept what was happening around her, enjoy it, and savor the moment. And that's exactly what she did. She didn't just compete, she embraced the occasion. She walked off the court with her head held high, knowing she had given everything she had. What would you do if you had just given everything you had and still come up short? For Caty McNally, the answer was clear. She would congratulate the woman who had beaten her. She would learn from the experience. And she would walk off the court ready for the next challenge. Because she knew that sometimes losing is just as valuable as winning. And the lessons learned in Toronto would serve her well for years to come.